Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Jonny Lipsham.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this very special Sunday Night Live that almost wasn't a very special Sunday Night Live. We had a power cut here in Edinburgh. In fact, a large chunk of the east coast of Scotland suddenly was without power. And like total pitch black. Street lights were out. Everything was out. It was weird and eerie. But I'm here. The power came back on after about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. And everything was fine. I started on my gear. And everything is working just fine, as expected. Which is good. But yeah. I hate those. I hate power cuts. Just kind of when you really don't want them. But yeah. It is what it is. But it is also Super Bowl Sunday. I am watching it. I have it on in the background. Because we do get it here. We get the Super Bowl via the BBC. So I do have it on in the background. I am watching it. And for those of you that aren't watching it and would like to be watching it, I'm very glad you're here. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me that you are either watching the game and watching me at the same time, or you've given up watching the game and you're watching me for this little period. So I appreciate it either way. You guys are awesome. And those of you that aren't into football at all, that's great. Glad that you're here. Now, I normally do for Super Bowl Sunday is I do a shorter show than usual so that you guys that are into the game, you can go back and watch the game because I'm into the game as well, so I will be watching it. But like I say, I have it on in the background. Mike says he would rather watch paint dry. Totally understand that. There are some games, there are some sports that have that effect on me too. But yeah. Bobby says hello and he hates football. That's fine. Old School Funk and Soul is half watching. I'm sure quite a few of you are half watching. I am also half watching. As I say, I have it on in the background on the BBC Sport website as well. So, and we're getting our feed from CBS. So we're getting their commentary as well. I don't know how many other stations it's on, but yeah. Steele's Official says, I hope I'll be able to set my loot back on this stream so I can stream as well without switching stuff forever. Yeah, I did say that we would talk a little bit about how I have Loopback set up and how I have it set up in OBS and all of that. And we will. We'll talk about that at least a little bit because I do get asked about that from time to time. And I think certainly when we went into the first lockdown, one of the early streams that I did during that period in kind of, I think it may have been March last year, was I did a couple of shows where we kind of looked at how I set up Loopback and all of that, so that those of you that wanted to be able to stream because you can't perform live could do so. So I'm happy to revisit that subject a little bit more. Garen says, I'm not into the Super Bowl yet. I'm sure there are a few people that aren't. And apparently CBS owned the rights. Okay, cool. So that must mean they are the exclusive broadcaster for the show then. Okay. That is cool. Thanks for that. We've got a good number of people here, considering we have 18 people here, considering it is Super Bowl Sunday. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Just Bob was here. I know he's working, so getting to my show, it's going to be a problem for him, and that's great. But Bob, thank you for dropping in and saying hello. We appreciate it. I'm sure you'll be seeing this on the replay, so big thumbs up to you, my friend. Thank you. Martin Weeks is here. Music to Motion is here. Kyle is here. Dwayne is here. Mike Neighbor. Steele's Official is here. And who else do we have? We have Garen down in Australia. He says listening in at work. Cool. And Alan is here as well, my good friend Alan in Glasgow. I don't think you had the power cut. I think it was mostly just us over here in Edinburgh. And apparently it extended all the way down to the borders. So something like 100,000 homes across the east coast of Scotland went off. Who else do we have? Thomas Melkerson in the Philippines is here. Ken Moss, Alps Media, and Bobby Booth. No show is complete without him. So yeah, we've got a good number of people here, which is awesome. Music to Motion says, I've never been much into watching sports. Yeah, there are some sports that I will watch, and Mika says, no Super Bowl for me. Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, there are some sports that I watch very avidly. Test match cricket is one of them, but I'll also watch the one day in the 2020 games as well. Tennis I watch. I don't really tend to watch golf. Well, I will watch golf, but it's not like I would just sit there for the whole day and just be completely and utterly absorbed and focused on the golf. I will have it on in the background whilst I'm doing other things. Certainly I did that with the PGA Masters, so I watched that. But yeah, okay, so Dwayne says, got JL on the left, Super Bowl center, wings on the left. Cool. Yeah, I figured that some of you at least would be kind of doing both. And that's fine. That's cool. I'm glad. Okay, so because it's Super Bowl Sunday, I tend to do, like, as I say, a shorter show, and it tends to be pretty much just a straight Q&A period, rather than kind of all the other things that we do as well. So if you guys got questions, let's get them in the chat, and I will go through them and see what we can get. Mike says you'll watch golf 24/7 over a single football game. Don't blame you. I do like the football. I like soccer as well. Only when Scotland are playing or Liverpool. My grandfather played for Liverpool. And he also played for Scotland. So yeah, so there is international football in British football, soccer in my family. So yeah, let's see. Bob Studio says, hey, a lot of stuff going on. Good to see you, though. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Appreciate you popping in. Even if you are popping in just to say hello, you can catch this on the replay. So if you do have a question, stick it in the chat before you leave. If you're not sticking around, that is. Then, yeah, certainly stick your question in the chat and watch this on the replay, and I'll try and remember to address your question. Yes, I'm well aware of the loopback question. I've been talking to Steele's offline, so I know his question about that. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. I appreciate the $10. You don't need to do that, but I appreciate it. Let's see. Mike says, what do you know about producing or mixing deep house music? Pretty much nothing. Gerard Stroh is here. Hi, Gerard. Good to see you, mate. He says, I'm more into recording than Super Bowl, doing lots of recording. Good for you. Glad to hear that. So we got 21 people here, which is amazing considering it's Super Bowl Sunday. Appreciate it. Yeah, old school song, old school. I can't speak. Maybe I should just end the show now because I cannot speak. Old School Funk and Soul says, I have missed Wimbledon tennis due to COVID. Yeah, I think a good number of us have missed out on watching that too. Mika says, do you watch Gregor's How to Say S1 Files in Various Ways? What do you think about it? Yeah, Gregor's video is extremely thorough, extremely helpful, and correct. All the options that he put up there on offer in his video were extremely thorough. To be honest, I probably could not have done a better job of that, to be honest. So yeah, there you go. Okay, let's see. Let's take care of this whole loopback thing to start with, because it's going to be quite complicated. So what I suggest you do, Steels, if you're watching, kind of watch what I show you, and then I suggest that you watch the replay as well and watch it a couple of times through to make sure you kind of set it up the way that I have it set up and see if it works for you. Now, here's the thing with loopback. Broadly speaking, it works. But there are some Windows computers that will do it better than others. Nobody knows why that is. It is just what it is. It is a quirk of Windows as to whether a certain chipset will do it better than others. Some will do it really great. I have been very fortunate in that this computer does it really, really well. But there are other computers where it doesn't, the graphics is not quite so good. So bear that in mind. Your mileage may well vary compared to mine. So here's the deal. Whilst I'm talking to you, I'm going to open up Studio One. And I'm going to have that open because I'm going to need to show you how you set this up in Studio One as well as in OBS. So I will try to do this. I'll try to do this as clearly and as concisely as I can because it is a little bit complicated. Because you're going to be involving ultimately 3 pieces of software. You're going to be involving OBS for the streaming side of things, Studio One, that's your DAW, and also Universal Control, which is the interface side of things. All 3 of those need to be set correctly for this to work. If one part of that 3-cog machine is not working properly, then the whole thing will not work. So, you know, you're going to have to be thorough in your troubleshooting as you are setting this up to make sure that it works. You're going to have to check back those 3 things every time you're wanting to check that it works or figure out why it's not working. All right, so let's start with Universal Control. So I'm going to go over to my screen. And I've got Studio One up here at the moment, but I am going to get Universal Control up as well. And the screen goes black there for just a second. And that's okay. That's normal. Okay, so Universal Control. I know I have an update to do. I'm using the Studio 1824. If you're using a different one of these devices, this will be broadly the same. Some of what you see in Universal Control, as I am using it, will be different to what you get depending upon your device. For example, if you have the Studio 24C, you will not see the mixer, which I'm about to show you now. Here's the mixer for, let me just turn that up just here. This is the mixer that you get for the Studio 1824. Now, there is no DSP processing, so there's no fat channel or anything like that. But you can set levels for your inputs at the Universal Control end of things. All right, so, but we don't want to see that. That's not important. What is important is this loopback setting. This needs to be set to virtual. All right, very important that this is set to virtual, otherwise it will not work. All right, so make sure this loopback setting is set to virtual. You get a little drop down here and you get mix 1, 2 or off or virtual. You need to make sure that this is set to virtual. And that takes care of the Universal Control end of things. Okay, once this is set to virtual, you are done. The next thing you have to do is you need to create a new song in Studio One. So let's do that. And then the next thing you need to do, having created that song, is if you are on Windows. Actually, if you're on Windows, it's a little bit more complicated. But on a Mac, the way audio is set up on the Mac is actually much handier for streaming than it is on a PC. On a PC, you're actually doing a workaround fundamentally to make it work. That's what loopback is. It's a way of tricking your system. Whereas on a Mac, you can create aggregate devices, which is basically creating a virtual audio device. And what we're doing with loopback here is we're kind of doing the same, but it's a little bit different. So if you're on Windows, you go to Studio One and Options. No, you don't go to Studio One Options at all. You go to Song, and you go to Song Setup, and then you go to Audio I/O Setup, and you need to create a stereo input. I've called mine Virtual Stereo or Virt Stereo. You could just call this Virtual In if you want, but it needs to be stereo. Okay? And then when you scroll across here, you will see if you have the universal control setting correct, you will see that you have a Virtual In 1 and a Virtual In 2. What you need to do is you need to assign your stereo input to Virtual In 1 and Virtual In 2. This is step 2. The universal control bit is step 1. This is step 2. Once this is done, the Studio One side of things is now complete. You notice that you don't need to create any audio tracks in order for your voice to be heard, or for Studio One to be heard. Okay? For example, if I go back to the start page, and if I open up, for example, my Dig Myself a Hole song, here we go. Now you'll see here that you can still hear my voice because my voice is set up in OBS. I'll show you how I've kind of done that. And it took me a little figuring out, by the way, to get it sorted, because OBS is a little bit more finicky than it ought to be honest. But so having done step 1, the virtual setting in Universal Control, and then step 2, the audio settings. Now, by the way, you have to make that as a default setting. Okay, so if you go back to song and song setup and your audio I/O setup, once you've created those, now this song has a few more inputs in it, but you will see that I have the virtual input still there, and you need to make sure that that virtual input is set as default. Okay, otherwise, again, it doesn't work. And I forgot to turn off my notifications. I'll do that in just a minute, because I'm kind of in the flow of it. All right, so you need to make sure that this is always set as default, okay? And once you've done that part, you should be done with the whole Studio One part. The next part is the OBS part. And for this, hang on just a second. I need to go to OBS, I need to go to settings, and I need to bring this across so that you can see it. So the next step is to go into audio here, and you need to make sure that you have desktop audio assigned to line out 1 and 2. And then your mic auxiliary audio needs to be your line in 1, 2. This is where your microphone will be connected. And then your second auxiliary will be here, Virtual 1 and 2. You need this in order for Studio One to come in to OBS. All right? So these 3 settings need to be set. Line out 1 and 2 for desktop audio. Line in 1, 2 for your mic, for your first mic, and then the second mic is the Virtual 1, 2. This is for Studio One. Okay, so once you've done that, then you're almost ready to go. The next part, I'm going to have to try and bring it over this section here. Now, this is what I see. And we're now going to get picture in picture in picture in picture in picture in picture in picture. This is going to be a little bit hard for me to do. So I'm going to come back over here and put it back on my second monitor. Because what I need to do now is I need to go and do this one. There's audio properties. Wait a second. So the next thing you need to do is you need to go to advanced. So you click on the little microphone thing. Let me just show you that again. Again, I apologize for the picture in picture in picture thing. I'm going to try not to allow it to happen, but it's really tricky. But you see under here where you have mic aux, this is me talking. And then when I play Studio One, that's Studio One audio at the top. Okay, so I've titled this main audio and I've kept that one as mic. But you can click on the little cogwheel here and you go down to Advanced Audio Properties. And whilst that's up, I'm going to bring this one back. There we go. So that just leaves this on the screen, so it's a little bit easier to see. And then what you need to do is your mic auxiliary, which is the mic that I'm talking into. You need to make sure that you set this to mono. Otherwise, you'll have your microphone only coming out of the left channel or the right channel, depending upon which input you've plugged it into. Okay? And then you can increase the gain if you need to, so that it's always louder than Studio One. All right? And then you need to make sure that the audio monitoring is set to monitor off. If you have these set to on, you will get feedback like crazy, and it will be horrible. So you need to make sure that these are set to off, and your sync offset is set to 0, and make sure the balance is right up the middle for all three. Okay, and I've nearly finished because I've got one thing left to show you. And this is where we go into is it properties? Yeah. The other thing you need to do is make sure that the properties for each one of those meters, where you have the little cogwheel underneath each of the meters, just make sure that these are set correctly. So for microphone, for mic aux, I have this set to my line in 1, 2, because that's where my microphone is, and that's also where the piano is. Okay, and I want those to be there. But the other thing you can also do is you can also go into is it properties? No, it's not properties. Where is it? There's an option called filters. And the filters thing here gives you a whole bunch of plugins that you can add to your mic. So in this case, I have just an expander, but I could hit this plus button here and I could add in any VST2 plugins. I could add a noise suppressor, a noise gate, a limiter. I can invert the polarity. I can add gain, or I can add a compressor. There's no EQ as yet built into OBS, but I have been told that that may well be coming in a future update for OBS. But for now, if you want an EQ, you can add it as a VST2 plugin. So you could add a Waves plugin. For ages, it didn't work. For a long time, if you tried adding a third-party VST2 plugin into OBS, it would crash OBS instantly. But I have been told that this works now. I don't use it, don't really need it, but you could do if you wanted to. And as you can see, I've got the expander set up, and these are just kind of settings that work for me, for my scenario, but you can change these if you want to. And that is pretty much it. That's how you set it up. And that allows Studio One and your microphone to be on separate channels so that you can balance them. That's what that little mixer is all about. So if I go into audio properties, here's my little mixer, and I can make sure that, and you can have this either as percent or you can have it as dB. If you check this box, you get percentage. If you leave it unchecked, you get it in dB, which is logical. That's sensible. That's the way it should be. So yeah, you have your 3 inputs, and you just balance them using these volume controls here, and then you can make the microphone mono so that it comes out of both speakers at the same time, which is what I do. All right, and then you just keep this box checked, active sources only, and then don't worry about any of these for right now. You can kind of customize the tracks to your heart's content when that becomes something that you want to do later down the line. But otherwise, you don't really need that. Mika says, man, this seems so intensive. The Audion EVO loopback mixer makes it so easy. Yeah, maybe it does. I don't know. But this is a free piece of software, so it really, you know, it is what it is for free software. But really, it's only 3 steps that you need to worry about. Step 1, make sure universal control is set to virtual. Step 2, make sure you have the virtual stereo input in your song setup for Studio One in your input matrix, and make sure you've got that assigned to your virtual in 1 and virtual in 2. And then in OBS, just make sure you have the microphone set and you have the virtual input set. And that's fundamentally it. You know, if you want to have any other sounds coming into the mix, like I have the desktop audio coming in as well. You saw that. You don't have to have those 3 settings. You could just have your microphone and your virtual inputs, which would be Studio One. And you could have no desktop sound coming in whatsoever. I like to have the desktop sound coming in to OBS because it gives me some flexibility. For example, if I wanted to play like I did in the last show, I had that soundboard, that crowd soundboard. And that was a website that I was using. Excuse me, that was a website that I was using. It was some soundboard website I came across. It had all these fantastic sounds. And so once it's set, it's set. You don't have to do anything. So whenever I close OBS, it instant recalls those settings every time. The only other thing you have to do is the stream key part of it with YouTube. And so there is, if you are wanting to stream to YouTube, you have to have a streaming key. There is documentation in YouTube. You can search it in Google that will give you how to set up the stream key. And then you basically copy and paste that stream key into OBS. That I can show you. Let me just call that up. Let's bring out the settings dialog again. And you need to go into stream here, and you need to make sure that the service is set to YouTube, and then the server is primary YouTube ingest server. And then you have a stream key. And this, as soon as you've put it in here, it gets saved automatically. And then every time you start your YouTube stream, when you start OBS and then you start your YouTube stream, OBS streams to the correct server, which then goes onto your channel, which you guys are able to see. All right, so that's important. There's a bunch of general settings here that are important as well. These are kind of customizations that you kind of don't need to worry about. And then your output. I have the streaming bitrate set to 2500. Enable advanced encoder settings, check that box. Encoder preset ultra fast. And then when you're doing any recordings, if you're just recording a video, you can set your path where you want the video to be recorded to and the file format. So I set mine as MP4, and you can it will go to users, Jonny videos on my C drive. I can have that go to anywhere. I can have the videos saved anywhere. And this is the cool thing about OBS. As soon as you've recorded the video, if you're really, really good at the scene switching like Jonny Gibe is, then all you need to do is just record the video and you kind of do the editing on the fly with your scene switching. And then you don't need to do anything in a third-party, video editing software. You can just do it all in OBS, and it works like a charm if you're that good at it. So there you go. I hope that kind of helps. I'll go through some of the other settings as well that I have. Make sure your base canvas is all set correctly. So if you've got 1920 by 1080p screen, then make sure that is correct. I obviously can't change that because we're streaming. But yeah, that's why all of these are grayed out. And then you've got hotkeys, then you've got the advanced settings here as well. Like you can set stream delay, which I don't have enabled. Let's see, what else do I have? Never disable hotkeys, enable browser source, hardware acceleration. I have that checked. And that's pretty much it, folks. You can set up hotkeys for switching different cameras or starting and stopping the stream. Whatever you want to do, you can set these up for as much as you want. And you can have hotkeys for pretty much anything. All of these are available for any of the scenes and things that you have in each section, because these are different scenes that I have. Which is why there's so many of them. And then I have all of these set blank because those are already kind of set. I don't want to change those. And then that's it. That is it. That's how you do it. Let's see. I'm looking through the chat. Cheers, Dwayne. Take care. Thanks for coming. Marcos Gomez says, we'll watch the live refresh the learning I'm doing right now. Good to relax a little. Cool. Martin says, yeah, the Antelope has several layers of virtual patch bays that make it as confusing as... Oh, okay, whatever. There we go. Mika says, I'm assuming you can save templates as well as your IO config with this. Yeah, you can. There are all sorts of settings here. Let's see. Again, we've got the picture thing going, but yeah, there's a whole slew of different menus at the top here that, to be honest, I tend to do nothing with. Show recordings, Remux recordings, settings, yada yada yada. Scene collection, profile. I've only got one profile, but yes, you can. I think you can have like a different profile. For example, you can have a YouTube profile. You can have one for Facebook Live. You can have one for Twitch. You can have one for Discord. Wherever it is that you stream to, I believe you can create different profiles for that. And of course, you can, although I don't have it in here, but you can have the feed for the chat built into OBS. You can have it display in OBS. I just don't have it set up, but it is possible to do it. All right, let's move that out of the way. There we go. So I hope that that was helpful. And we'll go back over here now. John Akers says, it would be a great community contribution for someone to take your sage instruction tonight and create screenshots and steps taken. Videos and printouts work well together. Yeah, for sure. Bob Studios says, I'm not the guy to do YouTube thing, and I'm happy with that. Well, I didn't think I was either. And to be honest, I thought that this was something that would be way above anything I could do. Now, I should make this disclaimer. You don't have to have things set up using the virtual loopback system. You can just take the physical outputs of your interface with a pair of TRS cables, run them directly to the inputs of a second interface that you have connected to your computer, and then you can set OBS to have the audio from that second interface being captured by OBS. And you do that just simply by setting just one thing. Instead of having 3 different things to set, you just have one, and that is the mic input. Just the one input. Doesn't matter which one you set, but you just have the one input. And you set that to the second interface. So basically you're telling OBS, I want you to listen to the second interface. And you're just plugging the outputs from your first interface directly into the inputs of your second interface. And you just need to do a little bit of balancing and overall, and then OBS will be listening to that second interface. I did it like that for years before I got the Studio 1824. In fact, my initial, when we moved in here and I got my new Windows 10 computer, I tried to set it up like that. with the two interfaces because that's what I had always used. Now, here's the problem that I encountered, and that is that my second interface was so old it was not supported on Windows 10. And so it made me sound like I was, singing or speaking a whole octave below what I was. And Studio One's audio came out a whole octave below what it was. And so it just didn't work. So I had to think of something else. So I talked to my friend Don Barnes, who runs the narrators, the voiceover narrators Studio One group on Facebook. If you're into narrating or voiceover work, go and check out his group. It's awesome, and the tutorial stuff that he does there is of the highest caliber, the highest quality stuff. He and I are really good friends, and he helped me set up this whole virtual thing as I'm explaining it to you. Basically, I'm telling you what he told me, and we spent some time going through this. We used Zoom, actually, so that he could see what I was doing, and he could talk me through the steps to set it all up. And then once it all set up, that was it. Didn't need to change anything. However, one word of warning, and that is when you do a Windows update, like, any major Windows update, what you will find is that it will zero out your OBS settings. It will not mess with the virtual, it will not mess with OBS, it will not mess with Studio One, but it will zero out your OBS settings. And you just need to keep a screenshot somewhere of exactly how you had things set up in OBS so that you can quickly and easily just reconfigure things. I've had to do that maybe 2 or 3 times now for different Windows updates, and it works fine, works beautifully. It's quick and easy for me to reset, so it doesn't even faze me anymore. It's just annoying. Okay, Steels, you're going to have to watch the replay, mate, because I have just gone over your question, the whole loopback thing. So watch this show on the replay and pause it wherever you need to kind of follow me through the whole setup procedure. You may find that it works for you straight away, but you also may find that it doesn't work for you straight away. If it doesn't work for you straight away, you need to check one of the 3 steps. Either step 1, which is setting up the universal control into virtual mode, or step 2, creating that stereo input and assigning it to virtual input 1 and 2 in the audio I/O settings in Studio One. That's step 2. Step 3 is the setup in OBS. So one of those 3, if you're not getting any Studio One audio or any microphone audio, or one or the other isn't working, or both aren't working, you need to go back through those 3 steps and check that you have them right, because they're kind of like a chain. If you break one, you lose the audio. So, you will need to just go back and check those 3 things, and it may take 2 or 3 times before you actually get it. But bit of patience, some perseverance, you'll get it set up. And then once you've got it set up, it's just a matter of, like I said, customizing it with a compressor on the mic or an expander on the mic. I have an expander on the mic just to make sure that when I'm not talking, the mic cuts out. And because I like to work without headphones when I'm doing my show nowadays. Not because I couldn't before, but because I prefer not to have headphones. And so it means when I have the expander on, if I'm not talking, the mic shuts off and the speakers can be at a good volume for me to actually hear if I'm doing something in Studio One for you guys. So I hope that helps. There you go. Martin says, a request for next week, a walkthrough for editing music for video in Studio One's versions 4 and 5. Yeah, I pretty much don't do a lot of that. I compose the music for film, but I don't really edit it. I compose it to the picture and then I send it off. And I only do that really for small budget films or for students who are doing they're submitting their final short films that are like 5 minutes long or 10 minutes long. So yeah, I don't tend to do any of the specific editing to picture. That's actually quite difficult to do in Studio One, either in version 4 or in version 5, even with the dual marker tracks that you have now. So you can have it in frames, you can have it in seconds, or you can have it in bars and beats, one of those. So you could have multiple marker tracks, so you can see kind of bar 1, beat 1, and maybe the 64th note of beat 1. That's where you need to have that sound to match that particular event on that particular frame number. You can do that. It's fiddly as heck, which is why I don't do it. But it's not impossible. It is possible to do it. I have seen people do it. And I think probably this is something that I imagine will get better over time. It will, especially as now we have the 2 marker tracks. I imagine that, there's a whole bunch of things coming down the line in that respect. But as I say, I don't actually know. Even if I did, I couldn't tell you. But yeah, it's not necessarily that easy. Certainly, I don't think I could do it in one show, because I like to have some, question and answer time at the end of doing a particular demo. So yeah, not so easy to do. But that is a great suggestion, and maybe I could think about doing a series of videos on it, because I think that's what it would take. Rather than doing a show in it, I think probably I would need to do a series of videos on it, maybe a 4 or 5 part series, to do it justice, and also not to take up everybody's time just with one question. Let's see. Music to Motion says, is there possibly a settings file that could be backed up and restored after doing Windows Update, or do you have to manually put the settings back? For OBS, yes, you have to reset them, because there's no way to back up your settings files in OBS currently, although it is a feature request, so hopefully at some point down the line they will add that, but at the moment there's no way to back up your settings files, which is a bit annoying, but it is what it is. Tim says, hey Tim, good to see you, mate. He says, it's funny that you're talking about OBS settings today. Is it? Were you planning to do the same thing? Let's see. Studio One, Marcos says, Studio One is almost perfect. The obstacle can't run on... I have no idea what that is. Is that an operating system? Yeah, it won't run on anything other than Windows 10 or Mac OS, anything High Sierra or above. Let's see. Tim said, I spent some time earlier trying to get better mic audio for my streams with an auto ducker for my mic while music plays. You can do it, I suppose, in Studio One on the front end if you want. Or if you have the ability to do it via DSP, that would be even better. But you can certainly do it, as I say, with the expander in OBS. They've provided quite a few effects, and I think that is something that is going to get better, that they are going to provide more things. I'm pretty sure that there's a feature request for an EQ, and there might even be a reverb that they're thinking about putting in there as well. But the noise suppressor is actually pretty good. I don't use that right now, but I have used it before. There was a while, I think maybe a year ago, where I had some noise because of one of my cables. One of my cables started crapping out, and I needed a quick fix. I could have swapped out the cable, but I needed a quick fix. So I used their noise suppressor, and you just dial it in, and the crackling, the noise from that cable just went away. And it's pretty good. I don't know what they use under the hood. Maybe it's something kind of RX6 or RX7 like. I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty good. Let's see what else we have. This what my yeah, they should they probably should, Tim. They should probably watch your expander. A lot of folks don't get what an expander does with gate in front. Yeah, I don't tend to put a gate in front of an expander, but I don't see why you couldn't. Let's see. Jared says, I have been having fun with my new Korg Wave State keyboard synth. It sounds like you are doing film scores as a strange sounding keyboard. I have done some film score work. Don't do very much nowadays, but certainly did do for a while. For a while, I did a lot of short films for film festivals, and I did a lot of student films. That was kind of the bulk of what I did from a film score point of view. They just sent me the video, and they sent me maybe a 5 or 10 page document of what they wanted for certain scenes, and then they kind of by and largely gave me a lot of free license to be creative with what goes on musically in the different scenes. And I'd have the producer and or the director in the studio at almost the same time whilst I'm writing it, because I would pretty much just play in a sketch score on the piano that would give them kind of an idea of what I was going to do, and then we'd orchestrate that out after the fact. Once I'd got their approval, I would then orchestrate it after the fact. Made it a lot easier. Tim says, my setup is unique. All the audio goes through my Apollo Twin, but there's no sidechaining in the UA console. I did not know that. I would have thought there would be. Surprised at that. But there it is. Ha! I am surprised, Tim, that there is no sidechaining in the UA console. Interesting. Yeah, UJAM strings are, in fact, anything made by UJAM is really good. I have a couple of UJAM products now, and they are really, really good. I don't have the strings yet, but I may or may not get it. Depends. I tend to buy things, not because they're there to buy. I tend to buy things if I need them, rather than just going, I'm just going to buy this because everybody says it's good. I tend to go, okay, everybody's saying this is good. I will think about buying it, and then I'll go, do I need it? So, like, question one really is this good? And if a lot of people that I trust and a lot of people that I respect are saying this is good, then I will look at it. And if it answers the first question, which is this good quality? Then I move on to question two, which is, do I need it? And if I find that even if this thing, this plugin, this virtual instrument, this reverb, this whatever it is, if I find, yes, it answers the first question extremely well, it is really, really, really good. Even if it is really, really, really good, if I cannot answer question two affirmatively, I don't buy it. And that saves me a lot of money. And it means I don't have like thousands of plugins. Like, you know, some of my friends have like upwards of 2,000 plugins. And I'm just like, do you really need 600 LA2As? Do you really need 500 Neve EQs? And they'll say to me, yeah, but each one is different because it's made by a different manufacturer and they've modeled it in a slightly different way. And, you know, those variations, those subtle differences between the different brands, the different models, the different ways in which they've been encoded will mean the difference between me using it on a trumpet or using it on a vocal or using it on a guitar. I go, great, that's all well and good. But really, kind of in an average month of mixing, of your 2,000 plugins, how many do you actually use? And most of them will say, yeah, maybe this 30 plugins. And I go, okay, so out of your 2,000 plugins, you only use these 30 on a very regular basis? They go, yes. Okay, why don't you just get rid of the ones that you never ever use? And then kind of whittle it back until you're kind of looking at plugins that you occasionally have needs for if there is a calling for it for a particular mix that you're doing. Hang on to those ones. But anything else that you just never touch, get rid of it. You don't need it. And they all think I'm crazy. But, you know, I have myself limited to, I think, about 65 plugins now. And part of that is because companies send me NFRs occasionally. But for the most part, every plugin I have on my system, I have bought. For the most part. Let's see. So now it looks like I have to have an S1 session up with my newly built effects chain. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, in some cases, you might have to do that. I don't have to do that with OBS. But if I'm doing a Skype training session with somebody, I have to have a Studio One session open, and I have, whatever song we are working on, I have to have a voice track in Studio One. And the reason for that is Skype doesn't do what OBS does with its audio routing. All Skype does is take the virtual inputs. So if I want to play Studio One over Skype, I can do, but it will only play the virtual inputs. So in order for that to work, I have to create a voice track in Skype. Otherwise, it won't work. But yeah. Okay. Understand that. Let's see. Martin says to do the trial thing first so you can do all kinds of experimenting before you commit. Yeah, a lot of people do that. A lot of companies do that, which is great. That's funny, Mike. Yes, Ken, are you listening? There you go. Tim says, I think 600 LA2 is the right number. That's funny. Let's see. What else do we have here? Kyle says, I purchased less than 10 third-party plugins. Good for you. I didn't use any third-party plugins for a very long time. I think I had the Waves Platinum bundle years ago when I was still a Cubase guy. And somebody challenged me, and they said, why don't you just mix with the stock plugins in Cubase? Just see if you can do it. Do it on a mix. See how you go. Okay, I'll do it. So I did. But then I kept on doing it. And then I kept on doing it. And then in 2013, I switched from Cubase to Studio One. And with that came a new computer, actually, as it turned out. So I just never reinstalled my Waves plugins at all. Because I hadn't been using them, so I just totally forgot to reinstall them. So I think I went for 16 or 17 years without using a single third-party plugin. Until I decided it was time to break that fast, so to speak. And I went and bought some Plugin Alliance plugins. And then Dave Vignola bought me a year's subscription to Slate Digital for a year, which is great. I loved their plugins. I used them a lot. I quite enjoyed it until I had to update them. And then they didn't really work very well. The updating procedure that you do for Slate didn't work very well. And so I dumped them. And I don't have them anymore. So yeah, I won't be using Slate Digital, I don't think, ever again. But that's it. Gerard says, I only use between 5 to 10 plugins at max, maybe 20. Yeah, you know what? Sometimes, in fact, I would argue that most of the time, less is more. Okay, let's go through and see what else we have. Time for me to split a video tonight. Okay, great. Martin, take care. Ozone works for old tape rendering, but it draws CPU. Yeah, I've heard that as well. Cal says I have the Waves SLG bundle, but the PA9000J is better. I have heard that as well. I did have the Waves SSL-E console collection until I needed to update those, and Waves wanted me to pay them $250. I said no. So Waves are gone as well. And I was a long time Waves user. I used Waves from like early 2000 or something, 2002, 2003, I think it was. And so, yeah, I don't touch them at all anymore. The best Waves plugin I think I ever had was the NS1, the noise suppressor. Gosh, that thing is amazing. You know, if you've got like hiss or earth hums or anything like that in any of your recordings, slap the Waves NS1 on there, just push up that fader until it's gone, and it really preserves the integrity of the audio as well as gets rid of the noise. I don't know what they do under the hood, but that thing is amazing. Let's see. Ken says, right now I'm at 1300 installed, but many are duplicates of VS2 and 3. There's like 100 variations. Yeah. You really don't need that many. But there we go. Yes, the 9000J has the E variation built in as well. Yeah, I heard that as well. I like Plugin Alliance. They are very easy to update. And I've had no trouble with Plugin Alliance at all. So I think maybe I will go and get a few more of their plugins. But again, like I said, I only buy what I absolutely need. I don't buy things I don't need or things I'm never going to use. No point in that. All right, so I think we are done for the day. We did make it to an hour because you guys asked some great questions. But yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for your time and your attention. I am watching the game in the background here as well. And it's looking like it's going to be a tremendous game, actually. So there you go. I would switch over and let you guys actually see a little bit of it, those of you that are interested. But I would probably get a copyright strike for doing it, so I won't. But there we go. I will see you guys all on Wednesday over on Jonny's channel for Songwriting Simplified. So until then, folks, good night.
Against me, my back against the wall, holding all the words, cards I feel 2 feet tall. I'll stand and shout, no holding back. Do or die, gonna dig myself a hole. Oh, do or die, gonna dig myself a hole. Now I'm hanging tough and I'm never falling back. When defense fails, I'm going on the attack.